Last week I accidentally video to YouTube that was intended for my channel. It was called The Future of Men's Rights. Before I could fix the mistake, it was made public and I received a lot of criticism, some of it fairly harsh. I'd like to address those critics now. And before I continue, I'm just doing this in one take, so I apologize in advance for all of the errors. William Barrick writes, I don't know who your target audience, who is your target audience, but your message doesn't resonate with me at all. It's far too lyrical. It doesn't feel real to me. If you want my support, you'll have to be more down to earth, and you'll have to prove yourself. Talk about what you want for yourself and why you want it. Try to describe the model of society you want to achieve for yourself. Always make it about yourself. Let me see who you are. Anyone can be claimed to be fighting for a cause, but what distinguishes the true fighter from the opportunist is the personal reasons for the fight. I need to know your reasons. Simply depicting men as victims won't work. If you want me to give you support, the core of your message should be about you, not about your cause and not about men. More importantly, don't try to play the role of hero who has come to save the poor oppressed cis-het men. The hero doesn't need help, only the victim does. You want help from me, then you'll have to explain how you are a victim of gynocentrism. So instead of talking about men, talk about you. Make it personal. Talk about your fear and weaknesses. Talk about what you want for yourself and why you want it. Don't talk about your cause, talk about you. One thing's for sure, I will never help someone who sees me as a victim. I see myself as a fighter, not a victim. Even when I lose, I still see myself as a fighter, not a victim. If you see me as a victim, then I will see you as a condescending, if not patronizing person, and I won't help you. I want to thank William for his critique. He did not engage in emotional blackmail, extortion attempts, concerned trolling, or telling me I'm a horrible person, a cheat, a swindler and a wastrel. Those things aren't criticism any more than kicking your opponent in the balls is boxing. William offered his opinion up, honest and forthright, take it or leave it, regardless of how harsh it was, in fact, precisely because of its harshness, and his decision to eschew chicanery. Williams, as far as I'm concerned, is the gold standard for critique. And I'm going to be returning to it again in the future. If you're listening, and you, like William, aren't inclined to help us out as a patron or supporter, please take a moment to think about why and write your answer down in the comments below. Because I really appreciate what William did, his honesty, and these are the things I need to know. Before I continue, I also want to thank William for opening up the discussion of my own needs and fears. Like you, William, I'm not particularly inclined to see myself in terms of what I need, my weakness, or as a victim. I prefer to sell the sizzle, but maybe I misidentified what that was in this case. So I'm going to attempt to answer all of your concerns and questions, William. First, this. William says, I don't know who your target audience is, but your message doesn't resonate with me at all. It's far too lyrical. It doesn't feel real to me. If you want my support, you'll have to be more down to earth, and you'll have to prove yourself. Let me explain the practicalities behind the Badger Cave, behind getting Honey Badger Radio an actual business location. There are three main ones. The first is cost for accommodations. In the last year, Brian and Mike have come up to my location, or worked with me in person, for a total of 5 weeks. We're planning to increase that substantially. If we up the weeks a year working together by only 3 weeks, and we were actually aiming for substantially more, me and Brian, more like 6 months, we would be paying more to rent a location for Brian to live in on their schedule, in other words, the people who run the location schedule, not our schedule, than we would the mortgage plus utilities plus taxes for this space, for the space that I'm looking at. And before anyone says anything about maintaining a space, my husband Jonathan has volunteered to do light carpentry, plumbing, and electrical work, which he's offering for free to help Honey Badger Radio. So we can either use the money to add to our assets and give Honey Badger Radio a little toehold into the greater world, and by extension the men's rights movement, or we can pay for accommodations. In raw numbers, for Brian to rent a house here for 6 months is $18,000. For Brian to lease an apartment here for a year, because you have to sign a year lease, just to live in it 6 months is $7,800. For us to pay for the mortgage plus taxes plus utilities for a year on the property I'm looking at is $6,600. After having worked together, both Brian and myself agree that there are significant benefits to in-person collaboration. Coordinating our work is streamlined. We can share studio equipment instead of buying duplicates of things. Brainstorming is also more productive, and we get better ideas out of the deal. Possibly because we're spending some additional time together outside of the context of Honey Badger Radio, such as going on road trips or watching movies. A lot of the appeal of Honey Badger Radio, and a crucial part of our productions, is the camaraderie of the people involved. That camaraderie is improved when Brian and I are able to sit back, have a cider together, and shoot the shit about things other than Honey Badger Radio. The second big practical reason is maintaining redundancies and improving internet access. Currently, I have 850 kilobytes per second upload. That's kilobytes per second in my location. You know how the videos we review on the Rant Zerker play at about 4 frames a second? We get lots of complaints about that. The video only plays about 4 frames a second because I only get 850 kilobytes a second upload. We're starting to explore new streaming platforms at Honey Badger Radio, and I can't even stream them. I can't even stream shows on those platforms because my internet upload speed is so bad. In fact, there's no redundancy for our new platforms because I can't stream them at all. If Brian isn't able to do a show, not only will I not be able to stream the new format, we have to recreate the show stream from scratch because I can only handle G+. That's it. Honey Badger Radio is essentially being throttled by my lack of internet access. We can't grow sustainably as we are. Because of my location, I don't have access to better internet unless I get a business address. They will only trench fiber line to business addresses, and I then have to negotiate a deal with a provider. In fact, in my location, the mortgage, taxes, and utilities on a business property are altogether a fraction of the cost for paying for internet access. For it's at least reasonable for a media company. The third reason is a bit more of a personal, practical reason. I need to make Honey Badger Radio more separate from myself. I think some of the criticism of the Badger Cave comes from the ignorance of Honey Badger Radio's current physical reality. You may be under the impression that Honey Badger Radio is only on the internet in virtual space, but it isn't. Honey Badger Radio already takes up significant physical space. It takes up my space. This is a really quick tour of the current Honey Badger business space. So, here we go. This is my recording studio. It is, in fact, a bookcase. This is where I stage the shipping and handling for our merchandise. It's my kitchen table. And over here is where I have my meetings with Brian and the rest of the Badgers. This is my breakfast bar. This is currently my desk. My desk where I do all of the organization of the stuff. This is my older computer. That's where I generally work. I work standing up because otherwise it's very hard on my back. And this is where I keep a lot of my organization. And this is where I do a lot of my organization, on a coffee table. This is my business desk. This is the Honey Badger Nerve Center, as it were, for organizing and administrating everything. This is our office. It's actually very cramped. When Jonathan is working on his stuff, I can't get through to my part of the office where I work on editing video. This is the inventory room. This is just the stuff that I have that's most crucial to have access to immediately. The rest of the inventory is up there. This is where I used to have my recording studio, but I was having trouble with this thing turning on constantly. This is a compressor. So I moved it into the bedroom. As in, it's eating up more and more of my home, and I'm running out of space to give it. Switching it over to an actual business address is the next logical step so it can continue to grow as more demands are placed on us in terms of services and providing merchandise. For example, I would need to double the amount of room I currently have just to accommodate merchandise inventory alone, so I'm not scrambling to store half of it up in a loft that is only accessible by a ladder and I don't have the ability to organize the rest of it. Now, William, those are the practical reasons why I need a badger cave. I'm also going to address more criticism that I got besides yours. And I'm going to say that it was not quite as excellent as yours. Dave Entry writes, I can't say I see a problem in them asking more for money to pay artists and people who spread the message. Not every group has to provide actual services to people in need. Having said that, I have to agree that the Badger Cave project is one of the stupidest things they have come up with. Spending an enormous sum of money on a physical property located in buttfuck nowhere, Canada, is in a movement that is already strapped for cash is absurd. What the hell would a Badger Cave be useful for? Getting together every couple of years to have pizza and beer? As you are spending vulnerable people's hard-earned money on frivolous projects, try to remember this. If Earl Silverman was bringing in this kind of cash, he would probably still be alive. Yes, Dave, I agree. If Earl Silverman had been given the funds to further his desire to help others, he would still be alive. But here's a reality check. For those of you who think we should be creating a men's shelter with the money we take in, according to the homeless shelter budget in Ontario for 2012, it cost $170,000 to house one homeless person. Now, it's extremely difficult for me to find the figures for housing women in domestic violence shelters, but I imagine there have to be more because in addition to room and board, they get mental health services, career aid, homing services. They also get legal aid and daycare. And that number doesn't even account for the economy of scale. It costs more per person to shelter one person than 4,000. So, likely the cost to provide adequate and sustainable aid to one man who is a victim of domestic violence is more on the order of $250,000 a year. That is reality, folks. Reality. And that's just for one man. Erin Pizzey tried to start a men's shelter, and her efforts failed in large part because the high-achieving men she approached, who gave generously when she approached them for a women's shelter, cold-shouldered her when she approached them to fund men's needs. Earl tried to appeal to the government and got a similar response. Undaunted, he managed to house a few men, but it was unsustainable. It lasted 2 years, and he burned through all of his personal resources and then ended his life. $250,000 for one man. If you want to create a shelter for one city, much less an entire country, one day you'd have to be able to cover, on day one, you'd have to be able to cover an operating budget of several million a year. Day one. We aren't there yet. We won't be there until we change enough hearts and minds, and we won't change those hearts and minds until we figure out why we keep failing to win those hearts and minds. And we're not going to win them just by being right. That's necessary but not sufficient. We're going to win them by selling the idea of men's rights, and artists sell ideas. William went on to say, anyone can claim to be fighting for a cause, but what distinguishes the true fighter from the opportunist is the personal reasons for the fight. I need to know your reasons. Earl's death is what spurred me to sacrifice my anonymity in service of men's rights. Prior to his suicide, I was preserving it in order to pursue a career in art and comics and writing without dealing with the stigma of having publicly advocated for men's rights. After, I decided I wouldn't accept any sort of writer or artistic or writerly success in a world where advocating for men's rights is stigmatized. That led me to stand up for men's rights publicly in the largest marketplace for comics and artists in the Western Canadian prairies, which further led me to be removed from it and banned permanently. Removed from the biggest venue for networking, career, and job opportunities and sales for comics writers and artists that I have reasonable access to as a Canadian in the Western prairies. Removed from a place I'd been offered a job, incidentally. I'm not complaining. I'm explaining. I made my decision to sacrifice any chance at a normal career in order to advocate for men's issues, and I did it because of Earl. But as much as Earl's life was an inspiration to me to be true to my own beliefs, he was a warning as well. So William, you said this. So instead of talking about men, talk about you. Make it personal. Talk about your fear and your weaknesses. Talk about what you want for yourself and why you want it. Don't talk about your cause. Talk about you. William, you may not understand why I spoke in the way I did. why I focused on men as victims rather than my own needs and perspective. I'm going to read you some more criticism I got. Happy Drumstick. The men's rights movement goes beyond you and the honey badgers. There are people out there making a difference while you tell us you need money for your own personal badger cave because you need a badger cave in order to make a difference. Fuck off. Be grateful for what you have. Use it to make a difference rather than every fucking show trying to emotionally blackmail vulnerable young men into giving. Because you know this. You make me sick. Here's what I have to say to you, William. In order to talk about my needs and talk about myself, I have to deal with commentators saying I make this all about myself, and I make them sick in doing so. But I'm going to answer your question or your implied critique. And I have to thank you for opening up the discussion to the possibility, opening this up to the possibility of discussing this in terms of my needs. It caused a number of things I was thinking about to come together. I don't often get someone who criticizes me for not thinking about myself. So don't take what I'm about to say to mean that I'm angry or judging you for asking. I've spoken in the past, frankly, about the mental illness I've struggled with throughout my life, specifically anxiety and depression. I've been hospitalized on suicide watch in the past, and I think I understand the thought process that Earl was going through prior to his death. If you cannot make it work, you aren't worth a good goddamn. I think that a lot myself. Not just that, but the idea that suicide is the one thing you can give yourself when you fail to be of service. When there's so many people who deserve the resources more than you, suicide is the one thing you can honestly give yourself that takes nothing concrete away from anyone else. Earl Silverman isn't just an inspiration. He's a warning to me, because I know I'm the type of person who would sacrifice her personal life for her vision just like him. Unfortunately, for the past year and a half, I've been struggling with reoccurring low-level infections. I have been having constant headaches and earaches, and I'm exhausted most of the time. I also am going gray, as some people very helpfully pointed out. I work full-time for 2 people, and I don't include those times that I say that I'm calling the day at 8 p.m. and end up finding myself working again at 8:30 because I came across something needing doing, and it's harder for me to ignore it than just do it. I recognize that these things indicate at some point something's going to give. Brian was a godsend. He stepped into the breach and got us all this far, but it's not enough. I'm going to show you guys something. Okay, so there's one final thing that I'm going to show you, and this is for every one of you who thinks that I'm lining my pockets and making out like a bandit. Alright, here we go. This is a bed. This is not my bed. This is my husband's bed. I only sleep in it because my husband is in it. This is my bed. Oh, by the way, I use this as a pillow, the barbell. Sometimes I put my shirt on it, fold it. At one point, I actually decided to try and splurge. And I got myself this alpaca skin rug. So I guess you could say the alpaca skin rug is my, aside from the books, is my one concession to luxury. Unfortunately, I found out that it's too soft, it's got too much cushion, and it still causes me pain to lie on it, so I gave it to the cat. I've been accused of lining my pockets and profiting off of men's pain. I'm showing you this so you get it when I say I'm not doing this for my personal gain. I am perfectly happy sleeping on a mat on the floor. If Earl was alive, I wish I could tell him that he had the right to take care of himself, to keep something of himself just for himself and not give everything to his vision, because he is more than just a service to others. We need to keep our generous souls alive and kicking. The people who sacrifice to give others should be given what they need to keep on keeping on. It's easier for me to tell that to Earl than it is myself. To myself, I just want to say, what right do you have to do anything when there are people who need it more? But this can't continue. I need to get a space away from Honey Badger Radio. I need my home back. I need my personal life back so that I can tend to my health and make sure I'm able to continue to do this. To be honest, untangling HBR from my home and learning to set it aside to tend to my health and well-being will probably be the hardest thing I ever do in relation to this idea. But I have to do it because Earl is both my inspiration and my warning. So I guess what I'm asking you, William, is to give me what I need to keep fighting and bringing attention to men's rights for as long as I can. I guess in that sense I am a victim. And thank you for giving me permission to talk in terms of my needs. I won't forget that kindness. William says, anyone can claim to be fighting for a cause, but what distinguishes the true fighter from the opportunist is the personal reasons for the fight. I need to know your reasons. My reason for fighting is the same as yours. I see men in help, and I need to help. I need to help those I love, and I want to help this injustice because I know it could hurt them. Because when I see men helpless, I feel helpless. There's a lot of practical reasons for a Badger Cave, but there is one very personal reason. Full time with Brian, he told me about a shop he ran for a paint company in Chicago. The shop had recently been bought by a national chain and was in the process of being converted to that chain's corporate model. Brian described how hard he worked, how much he put into making sure that the store was a success. He even moved into the same building and was on call at all hours to deal with any kind of potential crisis that popped up. He worked himself to the point of getting ill and losing his hair, all because he hoped to be given the store to manage permanently. The national chain laid him off after it finished its transition to its new corporate model. When he told me this, he said, I can't believe I ever thought they were going to give me the management of that store. It's one of those things you hear from men, stories of being tossed aside no matter how hard they work or how much they sacrifice, tossed aside without a thought, disposable. It wasn't that he was expected to work or to help or to give back. It was that he wasn't valued for it. I think this is true for a lot of men. It's not the expectation that they work that's the problem. It's the expectation that their only worth is in their work. That the man is just a wrapper for the work, discarded once the work is done. There are practical reasons why I want to create a Badger Cave, but this is a personal reason. Brian stepped in when I was getting to the point of burnout. He said, how can I help? When I feel like quitting, he's the one who says, no, this is really valuable to people. You can't stop. It's one of the most important voices saying that. When I look at our fucking subscriber count go down, and I think there's no fucking way we can fix it. People don't even want to invest in this enough to even subscribe to it, much less build a solution. He says, keep going, it'll happen, it'll grow, it just takes time. If you want to thank someone for Honey Badger Radio still being here, thank Brian. And because of his support of me, I want to give Brian the opportunity that was taken from him. I want to give him the resources to right a wrong done to him. I want to tell him, here's a space. I want you as its manager. That may seem like a small thing, but it's within my ability to do, or it will be, because Brian was hurt for exactly the same reason a homeless man is homeless, or a man who's subject to domestic violence gets no services. A man is a wrapper for work, discarded when there is no work left in him. And even though I can't afford to home a homeless man, we're getting close to being able to afford to fix that wrong done to Brian. And he's done so much for me and so much for everyone listening. If I can give him what he needs to fix a wrong done to him, then I've successfully fought back against the same social force that makes the homeless man homeless. That force is treating men like a wrapper for work. William writes, if you want my support, you'll have to be more down to earth and you'll have to prove yourself. Try to describe the model of the society you want to achieve for yourself. Always make it about yourself. Let me see who you are. One thing's for sure, I will never help someone who sees me as a victim. I see myself as a fighter, not as a victim. Even when I lose, I still see myself as a fighter, not as a victim. If you see me as a victim, then I will see you as condescending, if not patronizing, and I won't help you. When I first read this, I got really frustrated because I'm being expected to play the victim when William himself won't accept the role. But that's not important. What's important is being able to convince men like William that this is important. When I was able to pay Brian full-time from the Patreon income, he not only stopped me from burnout, he increased our overall production of shows. And this is tying to William's question. What do you want to see the world? What do you want to see? What is the society you want to see? When Brian increased the production, it created its own problem. Now we had too much material and we needed to reduce it down and annotate it so it was in more easily digestible chunks. Enter Arian and Alison, who annotate and summarize Honey Badger Radio content, respectively. I built up enough resources to enable Brian to increase the radio production. In turn, he built up enough resources to create work for Alison and Arian, too. And Alison and Arian will create resources to open up more opportunities for others to help out. On down the line it goes. Building, creating, making is integral to the process of men healing. Therefore, supporting men who have been wronged means supporting them in building a correction to that wrong. Think of all the wrongs done to men by our society, large and small. Think of all the men who were wronged having the resource to build a correction to those wrongs. Instead of ignoring those wrongs, turning them into opportunities to build. Not ignoring them or hiding them, but embracing them and turning them loose into the world as great works. Bit by bit, creating the infrastructure of a new society. That's the stuff of legends, of heroes, of destiny. In 5 years, maybe we'll have the resources to get 1,000 men correcting the wrongs done to them. In 10 years, we might have 10,000. But that's what we do. We build up the resources and we help others correct the wrongs done to them. We grow organically based on that simple act. I built up the resources so that Brian could build up the resources and in so doing correct something done to him. We might have to start with those wrongs whose wrongs aren't mortal, whose return is greatest. It might have to start with the artists who are the force multipliers in social change, but that's the simple act, repeatable act, that ensures victory. I don't see you as a victim, William. I see you as a man who's had a wrong done to you, and I aim to give you a chance for retribution, a chance to build, a chance to work to correct that wrong, just like Brian. William continues. More importantly, don't try to play the role of hero who comes to save the poor oppressed cis-het men. The hero doesn't need help, only the victim does. You want help from me, then you have to explain how you are a victim of gynocentrism. All my life, I've been told as a woman that I have nothing to offer the world. I'm just a victim of it, and the best I can do is serve myself. That was a wrong done to me. I want to right a wrong done to me. I want to build a solution. I want to show everyone who said I was helpless because I am a woman just how helpless I am. And more than that, I want to help a friend right a wrong done to him. That's what I want. And if you want to be a hero, if you want to serve, if you want to make me happy, if that's what you need to invest in this, William, then help me build a solution. Help me right wrongs. Man by man, we right wrongs. Man by man, we turn the society inside out. Now, William, as best as I am able, I've addressed all of your concerns. Are you going to become a supporter? If not, then why not? I want legitimate reasons from you. I want objections that when they are laid to rest, you become a supporter. I don't want to waste my time with someone who won't be honest with themselves why they aren't supporting us. You gave me honesty, William, and I'm giving it back to you in return. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with me. Have I answered all of your objections? Do you have any left? And if you don't, why aren't you supporting? As for the Badger Cave Initiative, I realize that creating a business face for a business is totally unbefitting the seriousness of the interwebs. So instead, I'm going to propose to broaden the gustatory horizons of the human race. We've all heard of the 6-bean salad. 6 beans. The 6-bean salad is a joke. It's an insult to the diversity and multiplicity of the bean. We need to push our bean horizons even further. We need to bring all the races of bean together in a harmonious blend of beanie deliciousness. There are 29 varieties of bean. All of them need to be represented in the salad bowl of honor. I propose that the future of the salad, the bean of human existence, is the 29 bean salad. Taking from the mighty culinary shoulders of Zach Danger Brown and his groundbreaking potato salad initiative, I'm going to create a fundraiser for $60,000 in order to make the world's first 29 bean salad. Every shade and shape of bean will be represented. It will be a triumph of the human spirit and a celebration of the bean. And if you want to be part of it, if you want to be part of changing the world for the better, making the world a just, more fair, more loving place, then support my initiative to bring all the beans together, every single one. This is the shit that really matters, folks. Bean salad. It would be utterly irresponsible to pay for a badger cave when the world doesn't even have a 29 bean salad yet. The reason why I'm telling you this is so that you believe me when I say that the only thing that motivates me is being able to do something. The reason why I'm showing you guys this is so that you believe me when I say that the only reason why I do what I do is so I can feel like I help. That I'm doing something to help. I don't really have any material needs that I can think of. I just want to be able to know that I help. Somehow, I've been able to help. That I can help the people that I love. And I can just be able to do something. I'm sure that I'm going to get a whole bunch of crap for this one too.